There are a lot of moments in history where people look back and say, how did they not know that was a bad idea? But the truth is, most of the time, people in the past didn't think they were doing anything strange at all. They thought they were being modern. They thought they were being responsible, and they thought that they were doing exactly what society expected them. And that's what makes history interesting, because normal changes constantly. Take smoking, for example. Today, we associate smoking with health warnings and restrictions. You can't smoke in hospitals or airplanes, restaurants, or not even in most public buildings. But for a really long time, smoking wasn't just accepted, it was encouraged. Cigarettes were advertised as healthy. Doctors appeared in cigarette ads, people smoked in hospitals, people smoked on airplanes, entire offices were filled with smoke. It wasn't controversial, it was culture. That same thing happened with lead. For centuries, lead was used everywhere, in paint, in pipes, cosmetics, and even toys. Why? Because it worked really, really well. Lead made paint bright, it made pipes durable, and it was cheap and easy to use. The problem was that people didn't yet understand how poisonous it was. And when something becomes built into everyday life, it'll take decades for society to actually recognize the danger. And then there's child labor. Today we think of childhood as something that should be protected, a time for learning, development, and growth, and maintaining the innocence. But for most of history, childhood was not treated that way at all. If you were physically capable of working, you worked. During the Industrial Revolutions, kids worked in factories, mines, textile mills, and farms, not for a few hours, sometimes even for 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. It wasn't considered shocking. It was considered necessary. They advertised kids working. Families needed income, factories needed labor, and labor laws didn't even exist. Childhood as a protected stage of life is actually a relatively modern idea. And sometimes what was considered normal, it wasn't just hard work. Sometimes it was public spectacle. Public executions used to be community events. They weren't hidden behind prison walls. They happened in town squares. Crowds would gather. Vendors would sell foods. They'd have tents and everything. Families would travel to watch. Executions were meant to serve multiple purposes, mainly deterrence and justice, but also spectacle. Today, we associate justice with privacy and due process, but for centuries, justice happened on a stage. And then, of course, you go back to the medicine. Before modern medicine, before science, and doctors relied on theories that kind of sound strange today. And one of the most famous was bloodletting. For centuries, doctors believed that the human body contained 4 humors: blood, phlegm, black and yellow bile. If those fluids became unbalanced, the illness would follow. So, doctors tried to restore balance by draining the blood. Headache? Bloodletting. If you had a fever? Bloodletting. Pneumonia? Hey, bloodletting over here. It wasn't fringe medicine, it was mainstream. Even George Washington was treated with bloodletting towards the end of his life. But sometimes the most surprising part of history is not the strange ideas. It's how long it takes society to accept new ideas. In the 1800s, hospital had a very, very deadly problem. Women were dying after childbirth at surprising rates. One physician named Ignaz Semmelweis noticed something really, really strange. Doctors who were performing autopsies and then went to deliver babies had much higher death rates among patients. So he thought of something really, really simple. Wash your hands. Specifically, wash them with a chlorine solution before examining patients. When that happened, death rates started to drop. But many doctors rejected the idea. Not because it didn't work. It was because that it implied that they were the problem. They were at fault. Hand washing eventually became a standard practice, thank God, but it took years, and so many lives were lost in the meantime. So when we look back at these stories, it's easy to ask, how did they not know? But history isn't just about judging the past. It's also about recognizing something deeper. Every society has things that feel completely normal at the time. Things people defend, things people will justify, and things people rarely ever question until one day those things change. And future generations look back and say, what the hell were they thinking? How did they think that that was okay? So history isn't just a record of what happened. It's also a reminder that normal is always evolving. And the things we take for granted today might look very different to people a couple hundred years from now.